Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 13, Evolution, Development and Function of Capitalism. And our topic is Development and Function of Capitalism. Let us first discuss the stasis of capitalism. The development of capitalism falls into a number of stages characterized by the different levels of maturity. Each of them is recognizable by fairly distinctive traits. Only when he seeks to trace the stages and to select one of them as marking the opening stage of capitalism. If we are speaking capitalism as a specific mode of production, then it follows that we cannot date the dawn of this system from the first signs of the appearance of large-scale trading and of a merchant class. And we cannot speak of a special period of merchant capitalism. We must look for the opening of the capitalist period only when the changes in the mode of production occur, in the sense of a direct subordination of the producer to the capitalist. This is not just a point of terminology, but of substance. The main work of Marx carries the title Capital. Marx spent many years of his life on the analysis of capitalism because he was convinced that a through theoretical understanding was needed in order to facilitate the practical critique of capitalism. It overthrew by the proletariat, as the subtitle puts it. Capital is a critique of political economy. Political economy stands for the economic theory developed by the classical bourgeois economists like Adam Smith and David Ricardo. Marx studied their theories in minute detail, starting their theories and subjecting their categories such as value, commodity, money, capital, etc. to a sharp critical analysis. Marx proceeds to expose the true nature of capitalism. In the process, he breaks down the powerful scientific legitimation of capitalist economy and not only provides a new scientific model for the analysis of capital, but lays the foundations for a fundamental critique of the totality of capitalism. Now let us move to the next point, political economy of capitalism. There are two ways to study capitalism and to get to know its specific character, and both ways we need in order to get a full understanding. The first way is to study its history, how it was born, how it developed, under which circumstances, and with what results. This requires a study not only of economic process but of the development of the whole bourgeois society. It is wide field as each country has its own history in this respect, but such studies presuppose the second way to study capitalism, namely the systematic analysis of the economic structure of capitalist society. In that case, one has to start not from the historical origin, but from the capitalist system as a totality. That is the approach which Marx follows in Capital. Capital is constructed according to this dialectic logic. Volume 1 is devoted to the analysis of the process of production of capital. We can neither discuss all the theories forwarded by Marx in Capital, nor can we go into the specific of the historical development of capitalism. We can only highlight some of the main theoretical statements and refer to some of the main aspects of the historical process. Now let us move to the next point, commodity production and capital production. A first characteristic of capitalist economy is that it is a form of commodity production, that is production for sale, production for the market. That is why Marx starts his analysis of capitalist mode of production with the analysis of commodities. But not all commodity production is already capitalist production. Commodity production emerged thousands of years back in human history, whereas capitalism is only a few hundred years old. In primitive society, all production is for direct use. There is no production for exchange on the market. Production of commodities of goods for exchange developed slowly. For a long time, it plays only a subordinate role. Only in capitalist society, commodity production becomes the completely dominant form of production. It becomes generalized. Analyzing the mode of simple commodity production, Marx characteristics the purpose as to sell in order to buy. The peasant wants to sell some grain in order to buy grain. The weaver comes to sell some cloth in order to buy the grain. The operation can be presented as CMC, that is commodity, money, commodity. One sells one commodity in order to buy another commodity. Money is a means of exchange just to make the transaction easier. The value of the two commodities of C and C is the same, is equivalent. However, on the marketplace, we cannot only the peasant and the artisan, but also the merchant. His economic operation is a different one. He buys in order to sell. He comes to the market not for commodities, but with the money. With that money, he buys some product in order to sell it at a higher price. This operation can be presented as MCM, that is money, commodity, money, with increased value. This money, which has been increased by a surplus value, is called capital. Capital has been there long before capitalism, in the form of merchant capital or users' capital, money lender capital. The difference is that these forms of capital derive their profit from their role in the exchange of commodities, in the sphere of distribution of circulation of market. The user and the merchant appropriate part of the surplus value which has been produced, but they do not control the production itself. The capitalist mode of production comes into being when capital moves into the sphere of production, when it gets hold of the means of production and starts controlling and directing production itself. This is a long historical process which starts in medieval Europe. Its basic characteristics are the separation of the producer from his means of production, the concentration of the means of production in the hands of one class, the bourgeois, the formation of another class which has no means of subsistence other than the sale of its labor power, the proletariat. Capitalist production is impossible as long as the producers still own or control the means of production. As long as an artisan, a weaver, or a carpenter has his own tools and workshop, he will not voluntarily go and sell his labor power and start working in a factory. As long as peasant possesses some land, he will prefer to work on it rather than get hired as a laborer. Capitalist production needs workers, people who sell their labor power. Therefore, it needs the separation of producers and means of production so that the producers are forced by economic compulsion to sell their labor power. This separation has taken place in various ways, usually in a very brutal and bloody manner. In actual history, it is notorious that the conquest, enslavement, robbery, murder, briefly force played the greater part. Marx has documented this for England in Capital 1, Part 4, Chapter 26, showing that so-called primitive accumulation is nothing else than the historical process of divorcing the producer from the means of production. The result of this process of separation is the formation of two classes which form the two poles of capitalist society. On the one hand, we find the bourgeois as the class of owners in whose hands the means of production are concentrated. On the other side, we find the proletariat as the class which has to find its subsistence by the sale of its labor power. Bourgeois and proletariat are the basic classes of capitalist society, but not necessarily the only ones. Other classes such as intermediate sections in various combinations may exist, but capitalism is possible only if there is a class of owners on the one hand and a class of non-owners on the other hand. Secondly, it is the relationship to the means of production which characterizes these classes: ownership or control and non-ownership. It is not simply a question of rich and poor. Not all poor people are workers. They may be petty artisans or hackers or peasants who still own some piece of land. An industrial worker, many earn more, and yet he is a member of working class, whereas the poor peasant owner is not. The working class is not homogeneous. It consists of various sections, skilled and unskilled, on daily wages or on monthly pay, under the poverty line and well above it. What unites them is that they are all forced to sell their labor power, be it under different conditions. A working class crosses the borderline of the working class only when his salary allows him to set up his own shop, to become a petty moneylender, or to start living or renting out houses, etc. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self-learning podcast.